But you are actually showing people, hey, you can have two of the most important aspects of life, being abundant, being a capitalist who's successful, and showing people that you can be spiritual, truly spiritual at the same time. I think that's an elevation of human consciousness. I think that's an evolution.
You have wondered what you would be able to do if you were the ultimate version of you, right? You would then have an easy time creating what you want, and yes, effortlessly enjoying life too. Now, you may know this already, the influence you have over your reality is far beyond what you've been told. Soon, you realize that your outer world is merely a mirror of your inner world, and we're here to connect the dots for you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to God Mode.
All right, welcome back to God Mode. Here's a man who we have programmed to become a billionaire. Welcome to the show.
It's true. That sounds a little crazy when you say it out loud, but that is facts. Yeah, definitely. I remember a couple years ago, I came to Upgrade Gold. I think it was like 2 years ago, right? My business partner, Ryan Nadella, said, hey, listen, you need to meet this guy named William. And anything for the most part that Ryan ever did, I was like, I'm always in, right? It's kind of the deal with the two of us, it seems. But I came here and I thought, oh, this is going to be NLP. It's going to be some hypnosis. We're going to do some mindset stuff. That's cool. I'll entertain. But I also decided I would play all in. But then I remember one of the nights leaving and being like, I was pretty satisfied with where I was at in life. I felt like I'd had some things figured out. I wasn't feeling that extra drive I was looking for that I had before when I started my company. And then I remember leaving and calling Ryan and saying, hey, bro, the goal is not to be a billionaire. He's like, good. It has not left. I mean, it has been my absolute, not obsession, but my focus and my mindset to be able to grow as a human being and to be able to push my boundaries as a human being, I would say came a lot from that day. So I really appreciate what you guys do here up at Upgrade.
Oh, it's an honor. I know that lots have happened in the last couple of years since then.
Sure.
And your company's hitting new heights, right?
We are definitely hitting a lot of heights. We have 190 employees now. We are, I would say at this point in time, we're probably the largest kratom company in the world as I see it. And we are doing a lot of stuff with just really trying to do what's best for the customer. We always have, but we've been implementing a lot more strategy into doing that, to finding better products, better marketing, better services, and really putting the customer first.
Where do you see this going? I think we already have the answer, don't we?
Yeah, the goal for MIT45 for me is a $1 billion company and to be the Coca-Cola of kratom.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
You can't do anything small around here.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And now I also notice you have launched. I think it fits you so well. The brand Spiritual Capitalist.
I have. Yep, I have.
Could you tell our audience, now here's why I'm asking this, for the audience's sake. There's not enough people who understand both aspects enough to be able to put this together and call it spiritual capitalist, first off. Second, I think a lot of people think they are paradoxes. They're extreme opposites, but they're not. They're actually incredibly important together. And I think that to be able to find integration of the two topics requires a master. So I'd love to hear from your perspective, why spiritual capitalists?
Thank you so much. The word master is something I believe I'm a student. Master is something maybe I'll get when I'm 80 years old. But for me, I'm always a student in life, and I will continue to be that.
The best masters are the best students.
So my whole life has been really, I would say, dictated by one major thing, and that's called listening. Now, when I say listening, I don't mean like listening to the person across from me. I literally mean listening to something that is beyond the physical, right? It's something in another realm that a lot of times will either bring inspiration or messages or visions or ideas. And a lot of it for me over the years has been about business, and it's been about trying to figure out a way to impact humanity and how to make change and all of that. But that didn't come with something I would say, I guess you could say came easy, but it only came easy because I would continue to listen to all the breadcrumbs, right? I mean, it had its own path, and obviously, different choices had to be made during that. But spirituality to me has been something that's always been extremely important, because it leads me on my path, right? And then the other side of it is, for me, business is about taking something that is your purpose or your passion and putting it into the physical. And it just so happens that the scorecard happens to be how much money that company's making, or how much impact that company is making, and so on. And so we've always tried to, at MIT45 and other businesses I've ran, is how do we apply spiritual principles to the business? For instance, when we built MIT45, it wasn't that we just came up with an idea and concept. We had to first build it. And then from building it, then they come, not the other way around. So yes, it had to be built in the mind, it had to be built in the spirit, and then it had to come to the 3D. And from the 3D, then we had to bring the people from our vibration to our products or to our messaging or so on. So there's this place where people think that, oh, capitalism is over here, spirituality is over here. They don't exist together. And in my world, they absolutely 100% exist together. And the more that I talk to people and I bring this messaging up, I should say, to people like yourself or other people that are in business, the more I find that majority of people see the same thing. And it's like, listen, I was guided here, I had a mission, there was a passion, or I created something through my own traumas that I wanted to solve a big problem, and I wasn't willing to stop, because when running a company, there'll be challenges that are gonna come up, and then the choice is, do I continue to move on or not? If that passion isn't big enough, or if that vision isn't big enough, then it's easy to quit. But if it's so big that it's going to make such an impact on the planet, you have to keep going, like continuing to go. But without those spiritual practices in place, without the listening, without forms of meditation or some form of divinely guided energy, it sometimes becomes a little bit more difficult to run over in this area. And also not just about that, but it's also about how to have a quality life at the same time, right? How do we have the duality of both?
I think it's definitely easier to be spiritual when you have a decent quality of life.
100%. Like, I really do believe that you don't have to have lack in order to have spirituality. You absolutely can have abundance to have spirituality. Now, you can have either or. I prefer abundance. And the reason I prefer abundance is because when I'm told something, I have the resources, I have the people around me that are abundant. And because we're living in an abundant world and we see the world as abundant, now we can change things because we see it as abundant. We're not thinking, well, we can't do that because we don't have. We're not looking at lack, we're looking at impact. And impact is going to take abundance. And so my whole thought process with spiritual capitalism is, how do we get more people in the world to be abundant, spiritually aware, and to see that we all can make an impact together and bring together kind of like the superheroes of the world so we can shift the world, because the world deserves to be shifted.
Wow, this is important. I think a lot of people, they will be waking up because of you. And look, I think the audience can tell so many people in this world think either spiritual or physical. And they don't think you could be both, which is very strange. But I think that's a virus of a kind of mental programming, right?
Of course it is.
That there's so much pleasure and joy and fulfillment in being spiritual. And one can also feel that in being successful in the physical. But some people feel like they have to give up the physical comfort and abundance to be spiritual, and or vice versa. But that's a terrible program. It's like one can't be successful in the home, in their family relationship, and have a successful business. Or one can't have a successful business and have a healthy body. All of these dichotomies are terrible. But you are actually showing people, hey, you can have two of the most important aspects of life. Being abundant, being a capitalist who's successful, and as you're living your life as an example of that, and showing people that you can be spiritual, truly spiritual, at the same time. That's a profound, I think that's an elevation of human consciousness. I think that's an evolution.
Yeah, I would agree. I remember when I was younger, my mom would, and bless her heart, but she told me that, listen, if you're going to be successful, you're going to have to sacrifice. Just that word. I mean, think about that. That is
Oh,
something, as you said, the virus, right? This virus is implanted in people at a young age. And that is that you can't have it all. Like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. And I also, for a long period of time, would say those same things. And sometimes I catch myself saying that because it is so much part of my programming. But what I realize is that the world is an abundant place, and we have such levels of abundancy out there. And if we get enough people in place that see things this way, right? What they see the abundance in the world, and they feel the abundance in the world, and they hear the abundance in the world in their day-to-day life, well, now we can make, again, going back to what I was saying, we can create more peace in the world, we can create more impact in the world, because people that have their necessities met and more, they tend to get to that place in time of self-actualization. They tend to start going into the jungles and, doing medicine. They tend to spend time doing trainings like Upgrade or all kinds of other places where they get to see how limitless they are instead of living into the limited, because they were born limitless. They just forgot about it.
I completely agree. In fact, what you're saying is precisely the same things that actually brought the world to where it is. And let me explain what I mean. Concepts that turned into practices, and people believe it strongly and begin to live that. From good things to not so good things, and both extremes had led humanity, even though they were intangible, they had led humanity to where we are today, right? From anything that's extreme, like, I'm not going to name too many of them, but the Nazis, right? That was an extremism of some sort. And people have different ideas about communism, capitalism, and everything in between, and many more other isms, to religion, or the atheism, right? To other extremes of spirituality. What's interesting to me is these systems over time, and belief systems that are totally so-called intangible, that led people to behaving the way they do collectively, and our world got to where we are now. So back in the old days, people couldn't get these messages except with, maybe the traditional newspaper or the old TVs, right? But before the TVs, there were newspapers, and before the newspapers, people were passing on words with books or town square bulletin boards or word of mouth. Now, we have podcasts now. We have a way to distribute what you're doing to the rest of the world. And knowing you, I'm excited to ask you this following question.
Let's go.
Because I think that what you're about to do for the world, and when people actually follow what you're doing, and I wholeheartedly believe that when people actually listen to what you're doing and begin to practice what you're about to share with the world, they are going to experience a change, not only in the physical, but in the spiritual. I would like to ask you, I'll ask you this first one. There are more. The first one is, what would you say the top 3 principles that you would like, if you could just succeed in terms of, regardless of what happens, you're just going to succeed. There's no chance of failure, right? Absolute success, whatever you put out there. What would be the top 3 principles you would like the world to learn from spiritual capitalists?
The first thing for me would be, before we get into abundance, because I believe it's very important, but first and foremost, it would be to see that we are all one. We're all connected. We're all one. We all come from the same waveform. We came from the same divinity. Like, we're all one. We're all brothers and we're all sisters. Now, why do I say that? I say that because maybe at that point in time, my belief is if we can see that we're all one and that we're all connected, maybe we might start treating people better. Maybe we might see that the fact of, like, when I cause pain, because in my life I have, right? I've caused people pain and I know that, but I'm not just causing them pain. If I look internally, I'm also causing myself pain. And so if I can get the world to see that we are all one, I think we could start to then slowly bring down all the walls. We can start to see that we're actually one world. We can actually start to see that, like, if someone is suffering, they're my brothers and my sisters. You know what I mean? Like, we're all connected. We all come from the same energetic force. And so that would be the first one for me.
Beautiful.
The second one, when I look at that and I look at, okay, so we're all one. The next one would be for me, would be that abundance is our birthright.
Ooh.
It's not the opposite. We were here to be abundant. We're here to experience this world and learn through all of it. And if you look at this world, there is so much to learn. There's so much to grow. There's so many places to like expand our consciousness, expand who we are in the realm of how we exist. But in order to do that, to be able to say, get on a plane and go to Egypt and go into the pyramids, or go to, you know, places I love like Costa Rica, or, you know, help a group of people, or if you see someone on the streets that's homeless, you have to have abundance on some level, because if you don't have that, it becomes difficult to be able to provide. Like I was saying before, like if you can't help someone if you can't help yourself. And so if we move to a place away from scarcity and we move to a place from abundance and we start to see the world from an abundant place, well, then what can we accomplish? Like, to me, it's about what can we accomplish to take care of each other? What can we accomplish in energy? What can we accomplish in the fact of like saving our own oceans? Because we're not going to be a place of greed, take, like we're running out of something. We're going to see the world abundantly. And when I say abundance is your birthright, I just don't mean money. I mean joy, happiness, peace, you know,
Including
food,
money.
Everything. That's a piece of it though, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a piece of the energetic, you know, equation. But I think some people get it confused with abundance is only about finances. And it goes well beyond that. It goes well beyond that. And we sit in a place of abundance. We can change the medical institutions. We can change we can change pharmaceuticals. We can change education. We can change politics in general. We can really step into a place of all inclusion. It just becomes a place where it's no longer about profit, because if everybody's abundant, that's willing to really do that, they're willing to see that, they're going to help make a change.
Yeah, if you have already enough, more than enough, and true abundance, I think it's an expression of someone's energetic field, right?
Yeah.
How abundant they are. I'm curious, what's the third one then?
Yep, that we're all connected to source. We are all connected to source, and if we're all waveform, and if we're all source, then therefore we are limitless. The goal here for people is, how do they become limitless? How can they take what's inside of them, those goals, those dreams, those passions, where they put limits on, and they don't bring their dream, they don't bring like their passions, they don't bring these things to the world. They sit behind a desk or they do someone else's bidding. But if they could see how limitless they were, and they could step out of that fear and step into a place of power and step into a place of creation and step into a place of abundance, right? That then ties them into a place of self-expression to the fullest level.
Oh, man. And, you know, frankly, the so-called sitting behind the desk, there are professions and industries that are still much needed. That being said, there are many that are getting replaced by AI.
It's coming.
It's coming, isn't it?
It's the biggest revolution of our time period. And I would say almost of any time. I would say it's even bigger than fire.
Man, and Sam Altman is raising $7 trillion.
He's not little couple bucks.
Yeah.
Because he sees it. He gets the vision of what AI is going to be, right? I heard something a couple days ago, and I think this is important for your audience to hear. And that is that we call it artificial intelligence. We don't use the word divine in there. And we also don't see it as human consciousness or human intelligence. So we kind of separate ourselves from this. But if you look at the way these models are learning, these LLM models are learning, they're taking in all of the information on the internet. Now, if they're taking in all the information on the internet, they're taking in all of human consciousness, words, thoughts, all of these things, right? So it's literally taking in who we are and combining it into a divine intelligence, which I believe can lift up humanity. That's what I've been seeing happening. But if we start to see something as separate from ourselves, now listen, what do? We judge it, we fear it, we get worried about it, instead of seeing how much this is really going to help impact humans. AI already for me has been life altering.
From my understanding, you actually have already built not only a company in AI, using AI, right?
That's correct.
But also you've become quite an expert in the field of AI. And before you say any more about that, I want to point out how interesting spiritual capitalist, who is also a very successful CEO of, a owner of another company,
Yeah,
right?
I sit on the board now.
Okay, sit on the board.
Chairman. Yeah, I sit
That's
on
right.
assistant
That's
chairman
right.
of the board.
Ryan is the CEO now,
Yep,
right?
Ryan's
That's
the CEO.
right.
Yep,
And then you have your AI company.
that's right.
Tell us, how are these connected?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I was in Maui, and I went down to Maui at an ashram in Maui about 2 years ago. And while I was there, I was in this little tiny hut, and I could listen to nature. It was so beautiful. And I just remember sitting in there, and I was working on a project, and I needed some ad copy done. And one of the gentlemen that lived next door, that helped me with a lot of development on this project, he basically said, "Hey, listen, I can get that done for you." And I said, "Oh, sure. Can you just get it done? That'd be great. Like, I really need the help." Next day, he comes and gives me this beautiful piece of copy. And I says, "Oh, did you use, I think it was Jasper at the time it was around. It was still around, actually." And he says, "Oh, no, I actually, this is myself." And I says, "Well, how'd you do that?" And he goes, and he started showing me some of the things. He wouldn't give me all of it. He kind of showed me some of it. And I was like, that's really interesting. So I would say from a technologically side of things, Peter's brilliant, right? So first and foremost, and back to being divinely guided. When that happened, I was extremely perplexed about what had just happened. I'm like, how did you do that? So that night, I spent all night looking on the internet for what would have been called prompting. So prompt engineering is a big thing. Everybody kind of understands how you would prompt something like OpenAI or ChatGPT or whatever. So prompting, and I couldn't find anything. There was nothing on it. I was like, this is crazy. Well, that same time, I had an issue with my assistant, and I wasn't getting some of the work done I needed. They didn't understand what was going on. Now, why do I bring those two things up? I bring those things up, and tying it back into spirituality in a way. I had the opportunity at that point in time to blame her and say, well, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, why are you not doing this? But instead, I paused, I took in some meditation, and then I got pretty much the download of like, listen, you're the person leading. You're the person that's in charge of making sure that she knows exactly what she needs to do and how she needs to do it. You're not instructing her properly. And why are you not instructing her properly? And I'm like, well, I don't know. That's a good question. Like, I don't think I have all the details either, right? I didn't have all the pixels to fill in. So from that moment, I then decided I wanted to build out a system that could help me paint pixels, meaning give me more information. And with that, the first place I started, because of our company, was looking to create more SOPs for MIT45 so we could have these standard operating procedures to be able to run the business more efficiently and effectively so people could follow processes. I then first started building a system that could create SOPs. And then all of a sudden I started figuring out how to, Peter and I, how to basically build business plans and how to then start to build who would be the ideal avatar. And this goes on for quite some time. So I ended up leaving and getting back to Salt Lake City, which is where our company's at. And I couldn't stop thinking about this, like obsessively thinking about this. I was actually at one of your trainings, and at night I would go back to the hotel and I'd be writing these plans down. Long story short, eventually what ends up happening is I end up building this piece of software. Now, the intention of the piece of software is simply this. If you have a dream inside of you, or you're currently running a company, but if you have a dream inside of you, how do you take that dream out and put pixels to it? Meaning a pixel could be a business plan, right? Because now something becomes real and becomes something I can do. And it gives you an actual plan on how to accomplish those things by putting it into a project management form. So there's one side of it. Then we have the other side of business owners out there that they're working on their business, which is great, like myself. But there's a lot of people that are working in their business because they don't have the time, they don't have systems in place, and they're not using technology properly. So what we did is we took the complexity of AI, we simplified it down so you can get repeatable results over and over. We made it so you could actually manage your team and make sure that you got all the details you needed from your business plan, your marketing plan, what your ideal brand should look like, what the brand voice should be, along with utilizing those documentations in our system to use AI to be able to talk to those documents. So therefore, like having a business in a box, really, but more having a coach that can work with you and talk with you through those systems.
Wow. So what you're telling me is you were spiritually guided to create this incredible capital opportunity
100%.
for other people.
Yeah. I want to teach people how to fish. You know? If you've had any level of success in business, everybody says, "Hey, listen, can I borrow some time? I'd really like to talk to you right now." I'm like, great. And you sit down with them, they come up with this idea, this concept, and you sit and work with them for a long time. Most people won't execute it because they don't have a plan, or they don't understand really what it's going to take. And so my thought is, how do we impact 1 billion people? How do we impact 1 billion people so that they can get their dreams out? Or if they currently have a business, which is really their dream, how do they then turn around and get more of their time back? How do they get back to what's important? How do they get back to doing the things they need to do? Because in the long run, for me, William, I feel that most people, they will seek abundance because they think when they have abundance, it's going to give them something like love, like peace, like whatever this internal thing is inside of them that they value towards money, which is not the key here. And so I want to give people the ability to have both and also have the time to go out there and do their own personal work.
The time has come. I think that from what you're saying here, and I hope that our audience is picking this up, the world is moving towards optimization in so many ways.
100%.
From giving us the opportunity to save time, energy, and entrepreneurs, spiritual capitalists like yourself, is creating tools to give people back their time and making their dreams into reality, right? Now, the time has come. We really can't have any excuses to not upgrade our life by deciding to do what we need to do. And also the time has come, this is my takeaway, the time has come where we cannot say, oh, I'm only going to care about the physical things. I'm only going to be a capitalist. I'm only going to be an entrepreneur. I'm not spiritual. Or I'm only spiritual and I'm not going to worry about abundance. I'm not going to take care of my family, or I'm going to just get by. The time has come that technology has bridged the gap between spiritual and capitalism, spiritualism and capitalism.
Oh, I mean, think about this, William. This is what was given to me recently. Light force equals life force. And what is AI? What is technology? It's light. So the age of enlightenment. You tie those things together, it changes the whole realm of like what we're talking about, because we have two options right now. We're either going to use AI, and we're going to use it in a way right now, at least while people have to do the tasks. We're going to use it in a way that says, okay, if something takes me, in the past, it took me 8 hours to get this thing done, I'm going to get it done in an hour. And we have two options at this point in time. One, we can say, I got it done, and it was done better than what I could have done it because of how it's done. Or I can say, I got it done, and now I'm going to do another thing. I'm going to do another thing. I'm going to do another thing. And I'm going to keep doing and doing and doing and doing, right? That's one way. Or the way is, I got the task done. I now have 7 hours left in my day. I can go connect with my friends. I can connect with my family. I can get into hobbies. I can do the things I'm passionate about. I can invest in myself and still create abundance. Meaning work less, make more money, take care of the people around you, have a higher level of like happiness and joy, because I know what it's like to work 80 hours and not to have those things. And so I didn't want people in that position.
Now we have choice.
Exactly.
It's a time where spiritual capitalism is actually becoming a reality, right? From people like yourself. I think there are so many takeaways. We'll have to do another episode.
I would love to do that. I think that for me, just so you know, I am doing everything I possibly can by people to empower people to be able to move into this next age, because we're moving there. This is not an option. Like, you either move into it and you get involved and you understand this technology and you use this technology to your benefit, or you're going to get left behind. And this is a warning to people, but it's a friendly warning. It's saying, hey, listen, we have built tools at Pono, and we built them so that you can be successful. We built them to give you leverage. We built them to give you vision. We built them to give you a much higher scope. And there's a lot of things our technology does that there's not enough time to show or talk about. But if those tools or tools like those are not used, people are going to be replaced. Recently I was at a conference and they said in that room to a bunch of CEOs, would you, if you knew that you can hire on an employee that knows AI, and when I say knows it, I don't mean programming, but they understand it, they get it, they know how to use the tools, or they don't know it, who would you hire? And then everybody said the person with the AI technology, like as far as the knowledge. And would you ever hire on someone that doesn't know that again? And the 100% of the hands room up and they said, no. That was a light moment for me to be like, the light bulb went off and I thought, wow, we are now in a new place. And it happened like this. And the next 6 months and the next year, we're going to see things that we only at one point in time could imagine because there's people out there that are trying to do the best by people. And that's beautiful.
It is going to be a beautiful age.
It is.
I think it's time for us to not only celebrate, but really focus on what we want, because with this technology comes the ability to create faster what is in our mind. It's all the more important. I think this is the last thing I'm going to say. It's all the more important for everyone listening and the world to focus on what they actually want that brings abundance to themselves and others, creating win-wins, because AI can make it happen in a quarter or 1/10 or 1/100th of the time that it would have taken us in the past. It's really time to level up. So Dalton, would you mind telling us, and this is based on my knowledge of, you running a very successful company as a board member, which has something to do with being able to help someone optimize their state. I would love to know, because I know you know a lot about the topic of psychedelics.
I know a little bit of it.
Would you give us your insight on this topic in general, or any specific things that you think would benefit our audience?
Sure. First, I'm going to say this, and that is, I don't think psychedelics are for everybody, right? It's, we talk a little bit about value systems, quite a bit here at Upgrade, right?
Yeah.
And depending upon where someone's at in their value system, I think sometimes when you jump into some of these psychedelics, you can skip a level, right? So you're not getting that awareness that could come from that. And I realized that recently in the last probably about the last year. But what I will say about psychedelics is this, is that imagine that you have the opportunity to be able to first step into a place where you get to see everything that you are. Now, what I mean by that is you get to see the good things, and you also get to see the stuff that's a little bit dark, or the stuff that's really dark that you haven't exposed, you haven't talked about, and you don't want to deal with. To have the opportunity to be able to sit with that. And what I mean by that is I go every single year and I go drink ayahuasca. It is something that I've done for the last 5 years. I talk about it because it changes lives. And I can talk about it because it changed my life. Now, having the opportunity to sit with that, to learn all about you, it is not a comfortable place sometimes. But what is beautiful about it is that when you can see all the parts and pieces of the self, and also all the parts and pieces of the ego, and all the parts and pieces of the soul and consciousness, and even the places that you feel are ugly and dark, you can learn why, and then to love them. And if we can love the pieces of ourselves that we hate, imagine the pieces we can love in other people. Now, the next step from that is, imagine now that you step in this place in time where you say that you get to basically go back to a time in life. And if the listeners are listening to this, imagine if you went back to a time in your life with the intention, again, psychedelics are about intention, but if you went back to the time in life where you lost your innocence, that place inside of you where all of a sudden where you had that level of joy from a small child, and you know this from the trainings you do, but from a small child where you lost that point and you could reconnect to that level of innocence, or some people call it the inner child, the spirit, there's a lot of names for this, but merge back with that space inside of the self. What that would do for somebody, because now they can come at the world in a much different way because they can bring, as you would say, all those learnings with them, right? And then the next step in that would be, then how do you heal your heart? And what I mean by that is, how are you reborn? So every time, for the most part, I go drink medicine, I'm in a different place in my life. So people like Dalton, why do you keep going back and doing this if it works and it heals you? My question to people is, how often in your life does something happen that is not something that you're looking for, or somebody pass on, or some lesson, or something that happens that you're still kind of dealing with, or you don't even know, or you don't want to, or you brush to the side? And if you can go sit with that, I've sat with my ancestors, I've sat with my grandfather. These guys are gone. They're not here. I've been able to commune with my grandfather and say, listen, some of the things you taught me, I love you for them, but they were misguided. And having conversations with that, or having conversations with, thinking you're going down a right path and all of a sudden it's not the right path. And so for me, when I go drink medicine, and I don't do a lot of psychedelics all year long, I'm not like taking mushrooms every single week and, smoking weed. I actually, ever since I drank ayahuasca, I stopped drinking alcohol, and I was drinking a fair amount. I stopped smoking weed. I stopped doing all of those things. Why? Because I had an identity shift. And so there's a lot of ways that we can have identity shifts, as you know. But for me, the most powerful identity shift is through drinking, ayahuasca medicine, because it's hard to explain this. Most of your viewers, if they've never done it before, it's going to sound a little bit weird what I say next. And that is the listening that I'm explaining to your listeners, and I've been talking about. There's a place where that listening becomes even stronger, because we're tied back to nature. We're tied back to all what is. We're tied back into the energetic field. We now have the ability to listen, because the intention to listen to the knowledge, to listen to the knowing, to listen to the learnings, to be able to see some of those things. And it's not about the physical, and also from an expression of, we have energetic bodies inside of us, and to be able to take those emotions and to be able to purge those out. So when you look at the curanderos, the medicine men, they really believe that the energy we're moving out of our bodies is we're becoming actually well. We're not becoming sick. And so those things get a little bit confused. And if you look at the reason that ayahuasca was brought to the Western world, was because originally in Colombia, the reason they were actually drinking medicine was to connect and to learn from nature. That was the goal, period. But now the white man, the capitalistic side of things, and I mean the machine, like the big machine of all of this, has moved away from the ancestors, moved away from nature, and really got tied down into what we'll call the concrete jungle. And so the curanderos at that point in time, what they were looking for is they released it to the Western world because they were afraid we're going to bastardize it. But the reason they released it was because they wanted us to get back to one thing, and that was some Mother Earth. They want us to get back to nature, because they saw that we were destroying our oceans and our rainforests and each other. And so they wanted us to heal as a group of people, because they saw the power that we had as a group of people. What would happen if we could help heal them? No different than what you're doing, no different than what I'm doing, but this is medicine. This is a place of healing. And the only way it stays as medicine is if we keep the intention. As we go in with our intention, we get the results from those intention. But you can do psychedelics to party. You can do psychedelics to have fun. That is not my purpose in doing any of this. My purpose is simply to learn, connect, and to be able to expand and to have a bigger vision of where things are going and what I'm capable as a human being.
That is indeed the best explanation I've ever heard about this.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, man.
Thank you so much, Dalton.
Thank you so much for having me, William. I love what you're doing for humanity. I'm all about your mission, and together we will definitely upgrade humanity.
Likewise. Good to see you.
You too, brother. Thank you again.
Absolutely. See you soon.